week I am speaking to Anastasia Kharychkova, and she is of an interesting background because she has already changed her career trajectory more than once. She began with a career in manufacturing and then moved on to a career in tech, and I even had another prior to manufacturing. But what we talk about is how she made those changes in the career, made the changes from Belarus to Poland, how that affected her on both a personal and a professional level, how she feels about making those career changes and having career gaps or different skills, and how that's viewed outside of in a CV and such as that. And then we talked more as well about coaching and leadership and so many things. A very kindred spirit, I would say, there with Anastasia and myself, and hopefully with you. So enjoy this episode. So, Anastasia, in Poland, is your name pronounced Anastasia, or is it Anastasia, or is it different?
That's really interesting question because it's different. Some people call me Anastasia, some people call me Anastasia. In my native language, because originally I'm from Belarus, my name is pronounced Anastasia. So I'm a little bit confused myself. And I usually introduce myself like as Anna because it's easier in a way.
Of
And
course.
no confusion at all. Not for me, not for other people. So that's the easiest way to go.
Because see, we make assumptions, like my name is Jennifer, and I've never thought that anybody would pronounce it differently until I met more people from Eastern Europe who will call it Jennifer, especially from
Wow.
Poland. Because I had a friend in Poland who I called Joanna for years. And eventually one day I thought to ask her, is that how it's pronounced? And she says, no, in Poland it's pronounced Joanna.
Yeah.
I was like, no way. Blew my mind. But she's just so used to all of us pronouncing it Joanna that she just let it slide. So it occurred to me, hang on, maybe it's pronounced differently. So yeah, a woman of three names. I'm a woman of whatever anyone calls me at this stage, really. I used to be really territorial. If somebody called me Jen, I didn't like it because only my father and my brothers ever called me Jen. Even my husband doesn't. And then I started working for an American company, and American colleagues will always shorten your name as much as possible.
Oh,
And they
yeah.
all immediately started calling me Jen, and I was totally weirded out by it. But now I find it weird when they don't call me Jen. So it's funny how it goes. Anyway, at least we've got that sorted. It's really nice to talk to you. I'm very excited about this. And I'm very excited to talk about your career path and things that you have done. So I like to seek out fascinating, interesting women that I find inspirational in different ways. And you've been popping up on my feed, talking about lots of different interesting things, certainly around tech, around leadership, around human beings and how to get the best out of them. And I knew this is going to be an interesting conversation before we even got into it. But let's, I guess, let you introduce it. You tell me a little bit about your beginnings and how you got to where you're at now.
Thank you for having me. Really, as I mentioned before, it's my very first time like talking to someone, and it's super exciting and super anxious in a way. But I think I'm happy that we are making it together with you. So because I feel
Good.
super comfortable, and I think that we are on the same page. So like it just makes me feel relaxed.
That's the goal. That's the goal. We'll keep it that way. Brilliant.
So my career process is very let's say diverse, and maybe it's not typical in a way. It's not that I've started in one industry and like gradually uh, go through different positions, and achieving like management position, for example. It's like starting in one industry, then jumping into another industry, one area of responsibilities, then jumping to another area of responsibilities. It was always like this. And I think this is kind of my feature, probably because I really like diversity. I easily get bored if I'm doing just one task or I'm focused just, on one area of things. So even when I started to do marketing, for example, I was like, okay, it's interesting in the beginning because it's super new for me. I'm learning, I'm trying different things. But then, like within the time, it's like, okay, I know something. Can we do anything else, please? So it was always like this, and probably because it was super easy for me to dive kind of fast into new areas. Now I'm in the position that covers lots of different areas of responsibilities, and it's like working with different teams, with different functionalities, and it was a challenge to accept that I'm not an expert in all of the fields. Let's say it's like high level about everything. It's still a challenge, to be honest, but that's how it's working. It was always like this. It is like this right now. Um, if you talk about tech in particular, I came to the industry like 5 years ago or something. So before I was involved in manufacturing, I was working with some tech companies, but it was a bit different. I would not really consider this as tech company, let's say. So like for real, um, manufacturing was really great, and I think still that it was one of my best experiences and something that really boosted my career and my skill set. It was super challenging, super excited at the same time, and then it was really interesting. I took one gap year just to rest a little bit. I was
Smart.
overwhelmed. Yes.
Smart. I think we should take them at least every 5 to 10 years. I'm learning now. Like I've not taken one, but now I'm on a break, and I just feel like
Lucky you.
life has been breathed back into me. I'm like, oh my god, I can do this, and I can do this, and I can think about stuff for 5 minutes and not want to fall asleep. But gap year, bring it on. Great idea.
It just helps to slow down, keep your time, get back to yourself, reconnect probably, especially if you're in the position that requires a lot of energy and it's kind of stressful. You manage different stuff and you also have some responsibilities in your daily life, right? So
Yes.
in a way, at some point, you're just super overwhelmed, and by that time, I got to the point when I couldn't even choose what I want to eat for dinner because
Mm,
I was like, okay, I make decisions during the whole day at work. I make decisions like in my normal life. Okay, I had family back that time. I was married, so still you have some things to decide. And it's like, what should I eat? I do not know, like really, and it was awful. Seriously, like in a way, it's like super stressful. You work like not 24/7, but many
you're
minutes.
making decisions 24/7, regardless. Like especially
Yeah.
when there's other people in the mix. Like yeah,
And but that time I was deputy director. So deputy director, the manufacturing company, it's a lot.
yes.
Um, and it was exciting, really, the best experience ever. But I was like, wait a second, I need a break. So I took my time to think about where I actually want to go from that point. And I had a conversation with my mom's friend at some point, and she was telling me about the friend of hers that she found a job in IT company, and she's so super excited because she's working with foreigners. Her English is just improving,
Yeah.
on daily basis, and so many opportunities. She's learning constantly. I was like, hmm, that sounds interesting. Maybe I should try it. And I just was randomly looking through job positions. I wasn't actually thinking to start something right away. I remember I was about to have a vacation or something, like some trip, and I applied randomly without even thinking about it. And they contacted with me, and I was like, "What? All right."
Time to start taking it seriously.
Not really. Like it was a position of project manager, and I was quite aware that okay, I was in the manager position, but it was different. I
Mm.
never was involved into developing mobile applications or something. I had no idea about this. Like, no technology stack. What's it about? Agile. What is this? I'm sorry. And I was like, okay, let's have a talk. And I had a talk with them, and turned out that they sent me an offer. I was like, what? Really? So easy. So that's how I got into tech. I think that the idea of improving my English, starting to use it on a daily basis, like working with people who are constantly evolving, who are creative, right? Who wants to get somewhere, far away from where they are right now. So
Yeah,
who really wants to accomplish something, who really like challenges, to get into industry that is developing so fast and that really has a huge value. That was something that really fascinated me. It still fascinates me, and that's how I got into tech. And again, as I really easily get bored with like just one area of responsibilities, I started as a project manager. Then I was like, okay, we should like cover some like requirements. So it turned out to somehow acquire responsibilities of business analyst, and then started to help with sales a little bit, because you have to kind of help sales manager to gather business requirements, to cover estimates.
of course. Yeah.
um, and then it was like, okay, maybe you can be a head of business development department, create it. Like, okay, sounds interesting, why not? And then it's like, okay, maybe COO. Okay. So,
I love the. I have so many questions, right? And I know you still have more to tell me, but I have so many questions. The first one I have is going back to something you said in the beginning, and you said it again there about, that you get bored of stuff pretty quickly, or I would always say I've got like a 2 year attention span. If I'm not working for a promotion or changing my role in some way within those 2 years, I'm going to get bored. I'll still do a really damn good job, but I can do it really well and it doesn't take as much effort. I want to be challenged by things. And I always assume that's like, I always go, that's because it's a neurodivergent thing. But when you talk about it there, you talk about it in a way where it never seemed to have occurred to you that you couldn't do those things. Where I see so many people now go, they either do it and they go, oh, I do it because I'm a neurodivergent, or there's X reason that I do it, or they don't do it. They say, well, I've chosen this career, whether it's project manager, developer, whatever it is, and I must stay here because this is what I'm qualified to do. And maybe I'll work to be promoted to senior, or maybe go into management at most, but this is my job and I have to go back to college and start all over again. Whereas I actually haven't met very many people who talk and think the way you just did, which is, well, I got good at this and there wasn't really more I could learn. So I thought, well, what else can I learn? I'll do something different. Um, that's my observation rather than a question. But my question following that is, what you see a lot in the recruitment side of things is ATS machines, and you must have continuation of employment. God forbid you have 2 months where you didn't work or a year where you took some time out to figure out what you're going to do with your life. And everyone is obsessed about that, or about a colorful background, where you have different career paths that you've had, where I personally think that's amazing. This person is teaching me and showing me that they can do anything I ask them to do, any skill, any task that I put in front of them, they're going to either be able to do it themselves or figure out how to do it with a team of people. Because you're so open-minded about your approach on it personally, if you were looking at people that had backgrounds where their careers changed often, or they had career gaps and things like that, would you feel the same way about it? Or do you think actually not even, I think you would, but maybe it won't, let me know. But do you think that the industry still looks at it the old way and is still biased against it? I know I see it, but you're in Poland, obviously, and I'm in Ireland. Do you think it's still a problem?
absolutely, yes. Really. It's so obvious. It's really on the surface. When people are going through their recruitment process, it's complicated if you do really have this diverse background.
Yeah.
Um, I am not quite sure why it's happening. So the system of recruitment process now is kind of complicated. I mean, lots of things are automated. So we have this AI for screening, yeah, and probably it's not taught really well, to kind of identify that, okay, it's not a problem actually. Um, it's supposed to make our life easier, but in a way, it's really create troubles, I think so,
Yeah.
for people to get into good companies, for
Yeah.
really great professionals to get into good companies. I see this bias that if you changed different roles, if you change different industries, if you, let's say, worked at a marketing, right, manager, and then you switch to uh,
Manufacturing.
manufacturer, okay, yeah, yeah, great
It's
example, yeah,
very different. Yeah.
yeah, and then you're like, oh, okay, I wanna try myself in healthcare maybe, and I wanna be a customer support manager for whatever reason. They
Yeah.
see it as a problem. For sure, I agree that for some people it might be a problem. It might be a red flag. They don't know what they want. They're like trying to figure out, or they don't try to figure out. They just want to have a job. But in many cases, it's just this urge to know more, to learn more.
Yeah.
And it's about developing yourself, because the person that actually had this kind of background, it it's such a value to have this person in the team. He has so many different insights. He used to
I
be in
agree.
different positions, communicating from different perspectives to that people, and it's so valuable. And as you said, it's really a great sign that the person is not scared of learning from scratch, and it's
Yeah.
kind of easy for him to dive into new industry, into new area, and okay, if I like it, I'm going to improve there. So it's something that came probably from like 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
We are still kind of there. We are changing, but not
Yeah.
like 100%, right? I remember the first time I decided to change my job, and it was okay, okay, you change, okay, okay, fine. The next time, and my auntie, and she's like 40 years older than me, and she was like, wow,
Again?
what? Why? How many companies will be like on your list? Why? No, it's not good. What's wrong with that? And they used to work in one company for
And
the
that's it. Who
whole.
is it not good for? Because it's not good for you to continue on doing something that's not fulfilling you. You've got, well, I'm 45. I've got at least 20 more years of work ahead of me. And I'm going to do the best quality of work in something that interests me, in something where I'm going to learn and grow. So, and I imagine the same for you, like making you do another 40 years of work where you're just kind of going through the mill. You're going to get the job done, but nobody's going to create great new products or new practices or break any glass ceilings doing that. But that's, I just love to go, but why? Like, why is this such a problem? And who is it a problem for? I also agree, though, that, or I also am of the mindset that if I'm applying somewhere and that's the kind of question they're asking me, for me, that's a big red flag. And I will very quickly go, yeah, if this is going to be a problem for you, the same thing as, people being asked to take out their piercings or being given out to for having tattoos. I'm like, it doesn't affect the quality of my work.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, in fact, it's expression. At least I'm taken out there, and not in any other way. But, there's you talked about the diversity among the people there then too. So I work in cybersecurity, and I'm always rambling on about how there should be diversity of thought as much as anything else. So if you've got people that are coming from varied backgrounds, I've worked with people that used to be sailors, used to be carpenters, and a lady who used to be a GP. And they were some of the best people on my teams because they didn't come in and look at it the same way as people who were traditionally trained in the system. And you need those too, don't get me wrong. But the people that are facilitating attacks or causing problems aren't all, have a master's in cybersecurity and middle-aged white men. They're very, very different people with different backgrounds and different reasons. So the more you mix it up, it seems so simple to me. I get really excited and frustrated about it all at once because it just makes sense. And I know I'm talking to you and you know it makes sense too, but yeah.
I agree. I heard lots of people, and to be honest, I never, and I talked about this on LinkedIn a couple of weeks or months ago. I never actually asked really some questions to check hard skills in a way.
Yeah.
I do, okay, I do, but they are not that important for me as questions about soft skills. And this is kind of connected with the background of the person. So if you never did this job, for example, or you did a similar job but in different industry,
Yeah.
or you had kind of, let's say, experience of 1 year or a few months, so not that, you know, um, really long time of working with
Yeah.
this particular responsibilities, it doesn't really matter. If you know how to learn, if you really want it, if you know how to dive into new things, if you have really great soft skills. And
Mhm.
in a way, for me, these soft skills, I always say that it's kind of a hard skills, I would say now. If you
Yeah,
know
because some
how
people
to
can't
learn,
learn that.
exactly.
Yeah.
If you know how to learn, if you know where to look, if you know how to take responsibility, if you're creative, if you really can think out of the box, and it sounds like we're talking a lot about thinking out of the box, but
Yeah.
it is a problem. Not all of the people can do that, even
Yeah.
if they've been working in the area for like 10 years, for example. It
Yeah.
means nothing. It's not about years, how many years you spend working in this particular role. It's not about your background at all. No, it
I
doesn't mean.
used to I used to have a saying that I used when I was recruiting. I used it with my closest peers because it did involve swearing, but I used to always say that if somebody is shown, like you just said, if somebody's shown an interest in the technology or the practices that you have and they want to learn, I always think I can teach anybody the tech. Anybody. I can teach my mother, and she's really, really difficult to teach, and I have taught her before. So I can teach anybody the tech, but I cannot teach people not to be an asshole. So if they come to me and they're an absolute asshole and they've got every credential they could possibly want and they're the best at their game technically, then unless they're in a role where they're not going to have to talk to any other people, I'm going to struggle with that, because if they're going to be in a team with other people, that's going to be the problem. That's going to be the thing that stops them from getting promoted. It's going to be the thing I can't change. I can coach it to within an inch of my life, but if they've gotten to the point that they are at the career that I'm usually looking at them and they're still having these problems, then it's a problem. Whereas I can teach anybody, whatever their background is, absolutely 100%, I can teach them the tech. But if they come to me with the hunger and the interest, then I don't really care if they've got, their degree. Like my degree work is in psychology and theater studies. It has nothing to do with tech, but I was always keen to learn, and I loved to show people who looked down their nose at me that they were wrong to do it. I'm a stubborn person. So in that, I learned that that's what happens if you're on the receiving end of it. And I've brought people in and seen them absolutely fly when they haven't come from a cybersecurity background, because they have the soft skills, like you
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
and the willingness to learn.
I
It's a
agree.
game changer.
Yeah.
Um, no, so you've been in a few different industries then, and it'll be interesting to me then in both the manufacturing side and in the tech side. Obviously, you're a woman in that side of things. Have you seen much change from when you entered both of those fields to when you came out of manufacturing, or where you're at now on the tech side? From the woman perspective, have you seen it more
Uh,
integrative?
I think that we also should take into account change of countries. So when I was in the manufacturing industry, I was back home. I was in Belarus. I entered IT industry, and now I'm in Poland. So it's still a bit different.
Yeah,
I would say that Poland is not that far away in terms of mentality and understanding the women's role, in society from Belarus.
yeah,
The, Poland is a bit more progressive, but it's still kind of conservative, right? And Belarus and other Eastern European countries, they're still conservative. We are evolving, I would say, yes. But I see that expectations of the society, of your family, they're still somewhere like many, many, many years ago, right? And it's really complicated. So, in terms of my home country and manufacturing, I really would say that nothing's going to change significantly. To be honest.
It's a big ship to turn, like, yeah.
Yeah, it will take a lot of time, really. And if to talk about women in tech or women in manufacture, for me, it's not even about industry. It's not about career. It's
Hmm.
just about our mentality, culture, about our perception of women's role in the society,
Yes,
about
absolutely.
expectations, about everything. So it's something we have to change significantly here in our minds. And it should be different since the beginning. Once a girl is born, it should be different,
Yeah.
because the gap between expectations and the role between men and women, it starts like since the very beginning. It's not something that we face only when we decide to, okay, I'm going to the university, what field should I choose? No, it starts way earlier, um, activities at school or expectations from the parents, how they treat you, what do they say to you, it's stuck there. So when you're actually at the moment of choosing, okay, what kind of career path to choose, you already have all this background. So you're already biased in a way and kind of
Yeah.
restricted.
How big or small your world is depends on how big or small it's been allowed to be prior to that point,
Yes,
I guess. We,
exactly.
but you move around quite confidently and quite freely then, which would suggest that, aside from your aunt, that you have family members around you who have allowed you to think bigger than just traditional female roles. Is
Nope,
that fair?
nope.
No, really?
Nope.
That's really
That's
interesting.
not my case.
So
No.
you're just, well, yeah, actually, how did you manage that then? Because you've obviously, I mean, I've had to change my parents' minds. Mine are in their 70s about a lot of things over the years, but I began that at about 12 or 13. You know, I've been working on them for a while. How did you manage that then? Because your home is the hardest one I found, the hardest one to break the traditions of. How did you do that?
Um, I'm still working on it, to be honest.
Yeah.
We cannot change the way our parents thinking and other family members, right? It's more about work on yourself,
Hmm.
the way you see the situation, and the way you separate from there. So
Yes.
it's more about you. It's never in the end about them because you cannot change them. So they will react. They will say the same things, and the
True.
only thing you can work with just how you feel about it, what you think about it, how you react about it. For me, it's still a challenge.
Mm.
I'm 34. I'm not married at the moment. I don't have kids, so it's not like traditional life.
Yeah.
It's not the life my parent would love me to live. And they were not really supportive in a way at some point, because they just see my life and my happiness in completely different way. So for them, it's like family, it's kids, it's not about like career actually. For sure, you should be educated, you should have work, but it's not that you have to put that much effort into creating something in this area.
Yeah.
And every time I started new course or I entered like my MBA program or whatever, I heard from my mom, I think that you're going in the wrong direction.
Mm.
And it's not about wrong direction in the career, it's about wrong direction in life. Because
Yeah.
it's like you're
According
not
to their rules, like, yeah.
exactly, it's like you're creating something in the area of work, but not in the area of family. And I
Yeah.
think that it's important as well, right? But it, everyone has its own path. And it's not that we have these milestones that are the same for all of the people. Not
Yeah.
at all. So for me, it is still a challenge. I don't think that they really appreciate like career growth in a way. because it requires a lot of efforts, a lot of energy, right? So if, for example, I decided not to build this career path and just to stay at the level of medium manager, let's say, right?
Yeah.
Um, it would be different. I would have lots of free time, and efforts would be way less. So I would probably have way more chances to create family, for example. Um, and there, our vision of, you know, partnership, as I call it, like family and this kind of stuff, is completely different. So it was a little bit easier for me to start growing because I was married back at that time, and actually, my ex-husband just gave me this opportunity to focus on work,
Good.
and he just took over some, daily responsibilities about the home. So in a way, that was like win-win situation somehow. And that helped a lot. And then just after we got divorced, I just realized that I want to grow. It's really interesting for me to grow in the tech. I
Yeah.
want to learn, and it brings me a lot of joy to learn new things, to meet new people, to try different new responsibilities. But it was always along with the feeling of guilt
Yes.
that
I
I
know that.
disappoint my family, I disappoint my parents, I cannot give them what they're waiting from me because they would be so happy if I bring them grandkids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot do that in the moment, right? And I'm not really sure that I want to do this, but don't tell them.
It was just like, oops.
Yeah.
But
So
it is your choice ultimately, and you know that, right? But what I find, like, my parents sometimes feel to me like they're my grandparents almost, because the world has changed so much. Like, my mother is 30 years older than me and 40 years older than my youngest sibling. So there's six of us,
oh,
right?
that's a lot. Yeah.
Yes. But when she got married, she had to give up work because you couldn't work once you were married. You were supposed to stay at home and become a housewife and then parent, or mother, I mean, sorry. And she had six children, so she was kept well busy from then. So
Wow.
she assumed that, and we were taught from a very, very young age as well, like, what would you like to be when you grow up? And it was like nurse, teacher, um, mother. They were kind of the three things that we were taught. And even like the secondary school that I went to didn't have the means to teach any of the boy subjects, like woodwork or technical drawing and technical graphics and things like that, until 2019. So the all girls schools that you went to were limited in the things that girls could actually avail of in order to seek out careers and things like technology, or in hands-on, traditionally men career type things. Now, my father um was a mechanic, and then he ran his own business for a while as well, and he was very much the kind of person that's like, is there a problem? Okay, let me figure out how we can do this, whether manually fixing something, whether going to learn how to do it, or just getting stuck in with cold hard work to get something done. Um, and I always thought that that was the path we were supposed to have. Like, I'm 20 years married next year. I have four boys. But during COVID, I remember trying to convince my husband. He worked in catering and I worked in tech and cyber, and trying to convince him, you should give up work, because he likes to cook and I hate to cook. Like, we'd all live on fish fingers and waffles, not gonna lie. Hate to cook. I'll do it because I'm like, if it takes me longer to cook it than it does to eat it, then why am I doing this? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But he likes to cook. He's much better at remembering where everyone's supposed to be when. But he was only working part time at that stage because I had been promoted to like senior SC, I think. So I said, if I go to management and I get promoted, will you quit work? Because he was off work during COVID, obviously working in catering. I said, you won't go back to work? And he's like, well, I'll think about it. So I made sure I got promoted twice at the time to lock it in. And he's the full time stay at home parent now. And we still, like, my mother couldn't get her head around that at all. The idea that he was the stay at home parent.
That should be tough for
Yeah.
her.
And I'm like, he's always made the lunches and he's always made the dinners. And, we've always shared the things like the laundry and the cleaning and stuff. Now he does the majority of them when I work. But she couldn't get her head around that kind of thing. And still to this day, you'll have things like when I used to travel with work and people would know that I was away, he'd meet some of the mums at school and the mums would go, oh, I see Jenny's away again. How are you managing? Are you ordering in pizza? What are you doing for dinner? And he's like, cooking it the same as I would do any other day. Like, so even now in the 2020s, in what I would have thought is pretty progressive Ireland, we get there. We do really well on some sides and really terribly on the other. That's still the mentality for people, that they automatically assume that the mother, even if she's working, if they're both working, that the woman in the house is the one that will buy the groceries, cook the food, organize the appointments, and do all those things. We share as much as possible, but he does, the majority of the hands-on, and it blows my mind when he comes home laughing, going, "You never guess what anyone said to me today." So I think more people like you, and it's difficult. I know it's difficult going against it, but more people like you who push to do the things that you feel rewarded by and you see value in, the more visibility there is of people like you that do that, the more teenagers, little girls, girls in their 20s, and even women in their 40s and 50s looking at you are going, oh, I can do this differently. Nobody told me that. But to see one do it, that for me, that's what it was. First time I came across people who had done it differently or chosen to do something entirely for themselves. And I was kind of going, that was an option. Why didn't anyone tell me that? Like, and as soon as I figured it out, like for me, everything just took off at speed, because then I really enjoyed it. And I love that besides, how people around you may feel, that you still pursue that. It shows great strength and confidence to be able to, and kudos to you for doing it. So obviously now you're in leadership in the management side of things. Have you
Jim,
oh yeah, go on.
you actually mentioned interesting thing when you were saying things about the husband and when he came to school and women were asking things. And that's actually, I was thinking about this for quite a long time. And that's interesting because mainly this bias and perception of what should be done from women's perspective, from men's perspective, is coming from women.
Yeah,
So it's mainly
that's fair.
them kind of judging other women who are choosing completely different paths for them. And they're kind of judging women who, for example, are not that good at household or whatever,
Yeah.
and completely have completely different relationship with their partners. And it mainly comes from women, not even from men. Okay, there are lots of
Oh, no, I think you're right. Like I've seen it. I used to laugh when I looked at the Trump campaign, and you'd see all the middle-aged blonde ladies, all done up, talking about how great Trump was at the same time as when he was going through court cases for things he had done to women. And I'm like, you're the problem as much as he's the problem. You
yes.
know, and maybe it's not quite the same as Trump, but you're right that that's where, if everybody is not open-minded and moving forward with those thoughts, then how can people around them do it? Which again means that things like your story and you yapping on LinkedIn about it, me yapping on LinkedIn about it, or to anyone that'll hear it, then eventually, I genuinely believe, eventually our voices will pass above the voices of those that are saying that you can't do it. But yeah, the women, and sometimes I think it's in the majority of cases, I think it's down to a lack of exposure or experience for those women to things, other ways that they can be fulfilled. And don't get me wrong, no diss to people, to women who want to be parents and are happy being parents and are happy being wives and are happy staying at home.
That's okay.
Yeah, good
Yeah,
for you if that's what you want to do. But if you also want to do other things, then there shouldn't be any reason not to, you know? Um, there, unless it's out of this world reason. But you should be able to pursue things that interest you and be supported by the people around you while you do it. Um, and the naysayers, as we would call them, the people that say no, honestly, they fire me on at this stage, but I've definitely come up against them in the past and chosen not to do things because of what people have said to me in the past. And when I look at it now, I go, duh, you idiot. Why didn't you just do it? Instead, you did it 10 years later and you're so much older and it's still fun and I still enjoy doing it. But I wish I'd learned the lesson years ago. And then I go, do you know what? I wouldn't be doing what I do now if I learned the lesson years ago. So it's all good. But yeah, I think education, I've still found, I remember being at, I've wandered completely off topic now, sorry. But I remember being at a career event in Dublin when I first started working in Tenable. And there was about 5 or 6 of us on the stand working. I was the only woman. So there was naturally a line of people at the stand, but the majority of the people at the line waiting to speak to me were women. And I was answering all their questions about work-life balance and what it's like in the office and how often we go in and how far away and all those things. And then one woman came up to me and she said she was coming back after a 10-year break of raising her kids. It might have even been 12 years. She was a senior developer beforehand. She was about to come back into the workplace. And then she opened up her conversation with me going, so how do you manage it with your kids and how often are you in the office? And I was in the office 5 days a week, driving from Wexford. So it was 2 hours up and 2 hours back. And she goes, you leave your children 5 days a week?
Wow.
And she said it at the top of her voice. And I could see younger women standing around her and even the men standing around. Some of them kind of turned and looked and went, what? And I immediately recoiled because I hadn't faced judgment like that in such a long time. And I was like, well, they have a father who's also at home.
That's
You know, we always chose in my house, we always chose to like rotate. That's when my husband used to work evenings and I used to work daytimes and we'd hand over the kids in between. So there was always one of us with the kids. And whilst it was difficult as a couple to manage that, it was best for the kids to always have one of us around. Not everybody needs to know why we chose to do it like that. And certainly not random people that I meet at a career fair. But that was when I was a cold, stark reminder that the worst judgment out there is coming from women, my women that I would have expected more support from. And yeah, it's very cold when that happens.
um I've learned through the last few years. It took me some time to realize this. I used to take it super personally. All the comments, all the judgments. I still take it kind of personally. It's still there, but it's better now. But I've learned that it's not about me. It's about them.
Yeah,
Um, People who are kind of content with what they have, they're not gonna judge you. They're not gonna interfere into
they
your
don't
life.
care. Yeah,
They don't care. They allow you, like not allow you, but they just accept diversity. They
yeah,
accept different ways of life, different ways of career paths, different ways of building relationship or raising kids or whatever else, or coloring your hair or having tattoos, whatever else. They don't care
yeah.
because they're content with what they have. And if they do not content, if they do have some personal issues, um, they will.
Yes. I was having
99%
that.
will.
I had that conversation with my 10-year-old recently. They're not long back in school, and he was saying that one of the kids in school was saying mean things, like making fun of, I don't know what it was he had, a school bag or a pencil case or something pretty insignificant to you and I. And I had stopped and explained to him, I was like, they only do things like that when they don't feel happy about themselves. And he was kind of going, what? I need you to break this down for me. I was like, well, people that are happy and content with themselves and their own belongings and their own life and the people around them don't care about anybody else's. They don't feel like anything's missing. But if they're looking at you and they're thinking, you look beautiful or you look happy or you've got a much nicer bag than I have and I can't afford it, then they're reminded of the things that they don't have or they can't have or they don't do. And it makes them frustrated or angry and they lash out. So I said, anytime anyone's ever mean to you, it's actually because whatever they're being mean to you about, they're not happy with that on their side of things. And he's finally at 10, old enough that when I give that explanation, he was kind of going, you know, no way. I
Yeah.
tried it at like 5 and 6 and 7. It wasn't washing. But and I do exactly what you're saying there. Like I'll stop for a minute and take a breather, and I'll think, why is this person being an asshole? And I'll go like, maybe they've had a bad day. Maybe, not that I make excuses for bad behavior, but I realize that it's almost never to do with me. I don't naturally go around trying to pee people off, so it's almost never to do with me.
It's definitely not about even excuses. It's more about caring about yourself.
Yes.
Because you're not stuck there. You're not like, okay, what am I doing something wrong? What's wrong with me? No, no,
Yeah.
no. Don't get me wrong, it's fine to get some critic from outside. It's really helpful. It's helpful to get other opinions, but it's always about the way people express their opinions and when they do that. If I don't ask you, please don't tell me your
Yeah.
opinion. If I do
Exactly.
ask you, please do it like politely, not trying to judge or, being um aggressive or whatever else. Just say it in simple words. Just say it. That's it. And just having this perception of the situation makes life a little bit easier.
Yes. Absolutely. And then as a leader, then when you've got people like a diverse team that have diverse thoughts and they're going up against each other, then how do you manage that to make sure that you're getting the best out of everybody and you're all moving forward together if they're all, because people always say, if you've got a really diverse team, aren't they going to argue all the time? Funnily enough, they
Uh,
don't.
that's a good question because it's a really complicated situation, and I still I'm s- I'm still learning, and I think that there is something that you will learn like forever. Let's say,
Yeah.
situations different, people different, and it just have to constantly learn. For sure, when we have some discussions and there are like controversial opinions or there are some conflicts in the team, first of all, it's really important to let people speak
Yeah.
and not just trying to um, prove why they're right,
Mhm.
but just to give their reasons why this decision is better. Um, I think we all tend to try to win the conversation, the discussion, because we want to feel better. We
Yeah.
want to prove that we are good enough, we are smart enough, experienced enough. And sometimes it's really hard to step back and say, okay, I was wrong, you're right. It's really
Yes.
hard. Really hard. So if you have issues with yourself, if you're not
Yeah.
really confident that you're a good professional, if you allow yourself to make mistakes, to have wrong opinion in a way, uh, it will be really complicated to be a part of a team. So for me, first of all, it's important to create atmosphere when people just share why they think this way, why they think this way, what are the pros, what are the cons. And I know that we're talking about kind of democracy where like all the people should be involved in decision making process, right? But sometimes as a leader, the manager, you have to take this responsibility to decide actually what we're going to do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's not just about, okay, you decide. Like, no. So in many ways, it's just let's talk about it. Let's share. I want to listen your point of view. I want to know why you're thinking this way. If we do the way you tell us to do, what's going to happen?
Mm.
If you do, like, what's going to happen? Um, and then it's probably about making decision. Like, okay, guys, I can hear you, but we're gonna make this way because. So
Yes.
it's super important to explain why we're doing this way. However, I should be honest, I'm not doing this all the time.
Yeah. It's
Um,
hard though to do it all the time, and you don't always have the time to
exactly.
give everybody the airtime that you want to give them. Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's um, one of the things I'm trying to work on, but it's not working all the time. When it's a stressful situation, when you have to make decisions really,
Mm.
when you have lots on your plate, you sometimes just don't have time to explain why. It's sometimes really easier, faster, quicker. Just say, we are doing this way, this is it.
Yeah.
It's bad. really. It doesn't give people a feeling that they're really involved into making decisions. It feels like, okay, hey, go on, go away, go away,
Mm,
really. It's really bad.
yeah.
It's demotivating in a way. I completely understand this. Unfortunately, it happens from time to time. So when we're talking about diverse teams, about diverse opinions, it just let people talk. That's
Yeah.
the most important thing. And when they talk, as a leader, probably the main goal is just to keep atmosphere friendly.
Yeah.
We can
Safe. Like,
argue,
yeah.
and that's productive, but it's not about going personal or being aggressive, just make people feel we're here just to talk. This is it.
Yeah.
Nobody is right, nobody's wrong. Um, Also, it's about explaining even this, that if someone says something or reacts in a way, it's not about you, it might be about this person.
Good.
Bad
Yeah.
day, I do not know what's happening, but it might be even about this person. Don't take it personal.
Yeah.
So I think those are the main like tips.
I think if you create a safe space for your team at a time when everything is going well, like you say, when they're being heard, they're getting a chance to speak. I think when times come where you need to make quick decisions or there's difficult decisions being made, that they receive them that much better because they trust you now at this stage because you've created that space for them. It sounds like the best place to start. Um, my God, we flew through nearly an hour. I have one more thing though that I want to ask you about before I go, which is really that your thoughts. So when I hear you talk, I hear so many great things that I would expect to hear from somebody who mentors, not just leads, but also mentors too. And I know I've seen you talk about it somewhat, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on mentorship, on either being a mentor or being a mentee. Um, is that something that you've done or seen people benefit from? Would you recommend it?
Um, I would say that if to talk about mentorship and coaching, for example,
Yeah.
I'm definitely a fan of coaching. So I'll explain why. When we talk about coaching, what I like about this approach, it believes in a person. It believes that everything that person needs, all kind of knowledge, all kind of skills, it is already here. The person already knows what's better for him, how he should approach the situation. And coaching just helps to create this safe environment exactly to think out loud,
Yeah.
to answer a question that probably person not gonna ask himself.
Hmm.
So in the end of each session, usually you have some kind of progress, you have different interesting insights, and but the most important, the person creates action list himself.
Yeah.
So he is motivated enough to do this. Uh, Mentoring is more about really telling what to do.
Yes.
It works, and especially if we talk about like career path and we talk about showing like role models and helping to get where you're right now, for example, it's mentoring, yeah. But I really think that you cannot mentor if the person is not ready, if the person has some maybe personal conflicts, right? And it's about coaching mainly,
Yeah.
from my perspective. Sometimes you can just mix both of them. It really depends on the person you're coaching. So some of the people I'm working with, we started like purely with coaching. I'm like non-judgmental. I'm like some like I'm not here. I'm just asking questions. Like
Yeah.
no opinions, nothing. But then I realized that they need some advice. They need sometimes some opinion from outside, and this helps them like to move forward. Uh, but actually, I think that it's super valuable. Um, Coaching. it's something that I started to do like almost 2 years ago, and it helped me a lot. And I see how it helps other people if they're really willing to work, if they're willing to change things, because it's more about like working on your own, doing things on your own, taking responsibility of what you're doing,
Yeah, personal growth
and
kind of, yeah.
yes, and being ready to meet the consequences. Because with mentoring, in many ways, it's like, oh, I'm doing what someone told me to do. So
Mm.
it's not my responsibility, like fully, right? Because I just came to someone, I threw
Yeah,
my
they were
problem.
wrong or they were right, like, yeah, I
Yes,
hear you.
yeah. And with coaching, it's a bit different. So because you ask, okay, but what do you think about that? How could you approach this?
Oh my God, you know what I've just learned? I've been mentoring for years, and I think I've just learned that I've been coaching for years.
Maybe
I, I've
people.
always assumed I was mentoring, but when you're describing that, I'm going, no, I'm more in the discussion and helping them figure it out what they want and helping them to come up with their own answers. In some cases, when it's really well structured, the idea is you're connecting them with people and pointing them in the direction of tools and stuff. But absolutely, the ones I found the most rewarding, I now see were coaching rather than mentoring, and I never thought to ask the difference, and B, I never understood the difference. So thanks, yay,
People still kind of sometimes mix these two definitions, like
yeah,
mentor and coaching. But I do like coaching because it's like something I've decided to do. I mean, I came up to this particular idea, I created this item list, and I'm taking responsibility for these decisions. And mentor is like, okay, my mentor was awful. My mentor had awful experience, so that's why it didn't work or whatever, you know.
yeah,
And with coaching, no, it's like this. Plus, it really gives you this um, great idea that you're capable of everything and you have all
yeah.
the answers here within yourself. And I would say that it really helped me in leadership role as well, because it just helps you to have this perspective that people can really have different opinions. They have answers, and just let them talk.
I love it. I love it. And my mind is blown. I have been having a ball chatting to you, but before I finish up, I guess I want to ask: is there anything else that you would like to share specifically, or anything that you would like to say? Bearing in mind, I guess that the most people that will be listening to this will work in tech, possibly be women or supporters of same, maybe even neurodivergence. But you know what? They could be anybody, but that's who I originally targeted it at. But is there anything else that you'd like to share about yourself or your story or that you've learned with anyone that might be listening?
Um, I think that one thing that I would like to mention, maybe somehow get back, because we discussed that some time ago, it's about supporting each other.
Yeah,
Um, because we can talk a lot about policies and organizations, you know, or foundations or whatever. But if we do not support each other on daily basis in our daily lives, if we do not accept that we do have right to have completely different opinions, completely different choices, it's not going to work. It will take some time to change something here, because it's not like, okay, overnight thing, right? um, some of people who will listen to this, they are moms already, or will become moms, or they are fathers. It doesn't actually matter. They're parents and they're raising the next generation. And it's about letting their kids to feel that they are loved, they are accepted no matter what. It's
yes,
not about, you know, do not have boundaries. It's not about that. But it's about accepting their vision of happiness, their vision of being content. And if they want to be musicians, okay, let them do that. Maybe they will skip it in 1 year and they will go to tech, or they will choose the career path you had in your mind, but it will be their decision. And this is the only way for them to find their own way of living,
Yeah.
to find their own way of being happy.
I love that. Such you make it sound so easy as words to live by when you put it like that. We both know it's not always, but I think that's like a mantra you could use when you find yourself challenged by things. Thank you so much for your time today, Anna. I really appreciate it. I could talk to you for weeks.
Thank you so much. Thank you.